now I will give the floor to Ms. Marta Andreasen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. I will first explain to you why I was so keen to have this study about whistleblowing. I think it's no mystery to anybody the fact that I myself was a whistleblower, or so did the public opinion think, because I think the European Commission still doesn't think I wasn't a whistleblower. And this brings up the first problem with whistleblowing, the definition of who is a whistleblower and who is not a whistleblower, who is a genuine whistleblower and who is a non-genuine whistleblower. I think that the study that will be dealt with by Pricewaterhouse, because they did the work and they know the details better, brings a conclusion which is a bit demoralizing and sad for the European institutions, in the sense that in 2006 there was a similar study which came up to several conclusions. Basically, that the European institutions did not have a minimum protection for whistleblowers, and that the regulation did not encourage whistleblowing. Far from that, it condemned anybody who brought up concerns about irregularities. I think this study comes to a very similar conclusion. And the problem is that 5 years have gone by since the other study. And this means that in 5 years, none of the European institutions has done anything about it. And this is a very damning conclusion for the European Union as a whole, because it reflects the fact that the EU institutions have no concern about public opinion. They have no concern about the interest of European taxpayers. Taxpayers who are funding all these institutions, who are funding this European Union project. I have, since my experience in the European Commission, become a Eurosceptic, and the conclusions of this report do not allow me to change my mind, really. The President has said that we are here to hear with open ears and listen to the different cases and understand the situation. But what we need now is action. You know, coming out of this meeting, we need action tomorrow, because 5 years have been lost. I would like only to focus on one of the aspects of the study. I would say the conclusion, one of the aspects of the conclusion, which is the fact of determining who is a genuine whistleblower. And this is a matter of concern for me, even the fact that it was brought up as a conclusion, as a recommendation in the study. Because nobody will judge from the start if anybody is genuine or not genuine whistleblower. They will just oppose any communication of concerns. And this, I think, is the key issue. We have to have an attitude where somebody who comes with a concern needs to be listened to and not immediately dismissed as a non-genuine whistleblower. And here lies the essence of how we need to move forward. The study talks about a change of culture, and I think the change of culture is around this issue. Now, the study doesn't tell us how we need to change the culture. It is up to us, the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the European Court of Auditors, and all the other institutions, including the European Court of Justice, who plays a very important role in the whistleblower issues. All these institutions need a change of culture. Is the European Union ready for this change of culture? We'll see at the end of this meeting. Thank you very much.
And now, Mrs. Andreasen, the floor is yours to draw conclusions.
Thank you, President. Well, before I give my conclusion, I would like to thank, first of all, the Secretariat for all the effort of putting up the study and the hearing, which is, I think, was a big effort, because we had to bring the experts, but we also had to bring all these people whose speeches are of great value. I think the greatest value of this hearing is the evidence provided by the experts, the member of the Dutch Parliament, the whistleblowers themselves, and Professor Lewis. I will pick up general points, the main points I got from all this evidence that we have heard. First of all, Pricewaterhouse concludes that the regulation is not yet effective. Well, in my view, it is very far from being effective. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves. If we think this is going to be a small reform, we are entirely wrong. This is a very big reform that we are facing if we want to do something about this. Mr. Strack reveals for me two main issues that are very important in the consideration of whistleblowers' treatment. One is the difficulty in explaining the technicalities of the irregularity you are dealing with. I know about this because of my own experience, and I could see it in his presentation, because I imagine that the first part of his presentation meant very little to most of the people here. And this is a very important issue, because this independent body that Pricewaterhouse is talking about, and some other speakers have supported, needs to have people who are competent in the different areas, not only financial, but other areas where we might have these irregularities taking place. The second thing he touched upon was that of Olaf independence. Mrs. Gressler pointed out that she didn't agree with the independence of Olaf being out of the European Commission. Out of my experience, and I have to come back to my case, I reported my case to the person who was my superior. And there was nobody above this person. She was the Commissioner for Budget. But it happens to be that Olaf reported into the same Commissioner. So I had no way out. And this clearly portrays the difficulty of Olaf being inside the Commission. Any irregularity with EU funding starts and ends in the Commission. Whether the Member States are the ones who implement the programmes and whether the irregularities occur there, the Commission is involved from beginning to end. In relation to what Mr. Omtzig, who has unfortunately left, I think he puts up two important points. One is the fact that the crisis is a perfect example of the importance of whistleblowers. He spoke about false accounting. I agree completely with him. A lot of the problems we have today around the world have to do with false accounting. And the authorities around the world, not only the European Union, are terribly lenient with all this false accounting. We didn't learn anything about Enron and WorldCom. Nothing at all. And this is the key issue. He spoke about false accounting and the data that was wrongly reported to the European Union by the Member States. Well, there was an entity which is part of the European Union, which is called Eurostat. Can you please tell me what the 1,000 employees of Eurostat do with the figures they receive from the Member States? The EU has a responsibility in that false accounting. I now go back to Mrs. Karen Hughes. she spoke about 2 points that are very important. One is the attitude of the organisations that feel they are above the law. Many organisations feel they are above the law. And from my point of view, the European Union feels it is above the law. She said that the Civil Service Tribunal was not effective. I cannot but agree 100% with her. And I said it at the beginning, the European Court of Justice and all its internal bodies play a very important role in the protection of the whistleblowers. Whistleblowers in the European Union do not trust the institutions, do not trust the Commission, do not trust the Parliament, but fundamentally do not trust the European Court of Justice. They know they have no remedy. Mr. Lewis focused on the difference between talking about duty and right to report. And I think this is very important, because if you have the duty, you need to make very sure that you will not retaliate against the people who report. If you have the right to report, then you have the independence to decide if you are willing to go through all the struggle or not. He also talked about the freedom of expression and the fact that we could use the media as last resort. And I think this should be included in the regulation that we will develop to sort out all these problems. He spoke about the burden of proof on the recipient and not on the whistleblower. The burden of proof to prove if there is an irregularity, if the reporting is sincere or not. Most of the time, the burden is put on the whistleblower. And I can tell you this becomes an impossible job. He talked about also, and very importantly, the fact that the EU regulates on discrimination and that he considers this to be, whistleblowers to be discriminated. So here we are violating our own regulation. To conclude, I think this gives us the opportunity to make a radical change. But I think, as somebody has said, that politicians here play an important role, and we have a very important role ahead. I hope it will not take us 5 years more. Thank you.